Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to do something just a little bit different today. We're doing a total visual deconstruction of one single, highly symbolic graphic. We usually just breeze right past these old historical diagrams, but today, we're slowing it down. We're going to unpack literally every drawn line and carefully placed symbol to figure out the exact story being told here. So, let's just dive right in. Okay, so let's take a look at the complete visual artifact. Now, at first glance, I know it kind of just looks like your standard, boring, introductory graphic. But it's actually this incredibly deliberate piece of visual communication. I mean, notice how there are two completely distinct clusters of imagery, right? And they're separated by this big expanse of white space, all sitting under one really bold heading. The artist here was meticulously crafting a narrative, so let's go ahead and break it all apart. Now, before we even start decoding those drawings, we've got to look at our anchor up top, the text reading 1957 GATT Session. This bold lettering really grounds us because everything below it is trying to capture the absolute essence of this very specific historical event, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. By pairing this prominent title with the visuals, the artist is immediately setting the stage. They're telling us, hey, this is a story about post-war global agreements, strict economic rules, and some seriously complex international negotiations. So moving over to the left side, let's systematically catalog these highly structured icons we've got grouped together. We're looking at an open book, a shield, stacked coins, an upward trend line, and a clock. And what's really interesting about this is the nature of these items. They aren't vague or abstract at all. They are highly specific, universally recognized visual icons standing for protection and prosperity. If we look a little closer at this left-hand grouping, you can see how the open book clearly represents codified rules and official treaties. And right next to it, you've got the shield, which is there to safeguard those exact economic interests. But check out how those stacked coins are sitting perfectly at the base of that sharp upward trend line. It's literally a visual narrative showing us that protection leads straight to wealth. Oh, and that clock tucked underneath? It's such a clever touch. It adds this whole dimension of time, basically suggesting that this prosperity is a steady, governed, long-term process. Okay, so on the left side, everything makes perfect logical sense, right? It's clean, it's mathematical, it's highly structured. But that brings us to a really compelling question. How do these strict codified rules and ambitious economic goals actually come together in the real world? Because let's be honest, it's one thing to just draw an upward arrow of prosperity on a whiteboard, but actually achieving it when you've got dozens of complex, competing interests, that is an entirely different ballgame. And the artist totally knew this, which is exactly why the graphic doesn't just end there. To answer that question, we're going to shift our visual focus entirely. And I really want to emphasize one specific number here, and that number is 5. Exactly 5 distinct multicolored puzzle pieces. Think about it. If that left side was all about unified, rigid rules, this number introduces plurality. It introduces friction. We're looking at 5 totally different pieces, different colors, different shapes, that somehow have to interact and fit together. Now just look at those scattered puzzle pieces on the right. The energy over here is completely different. The pieces are floating, they're almost suspended in midair, but if you look really closely at those subtle drawn lines placed right between them, you'll see they're all moving inward, straight toward the center. It's this brilliant visual representation of a complex negotiation. The artist is using this puzzle metaphor to show us that these totally separate entities are in the active, delicate, and probably messy process of being assembled into one unified whole. And this brilliantly illustrates the central tension of the entire graphic. We're looking at a direct juxtaposition here. On one hand, you have the structured rules, the open book, the rigid shield, that totally predictable trend line. And then, on the exact opposite side, you have complex integration, these scattered, multicolored puzzle pieces all converging. The artist is basically showing us that the clean, theoretical side of the 1957 GATT session is fundamentally balanced against the messy, incredibly intricate reality of actually getting all these different pieces to fit together at the negotiating table. So, the crucial point here is that you really can't fully understand the message of this artifact if you're only looking at one side. Pulling back to look at the complete picture, we can finally see how these two separate metaphors combine into one cohesive story. Those structured economic goals on the left, they rely entirely on successfully solving that multi-part puzzle on the right. The 1957 session wasn't just about drafting up some rules, it was about the really delicate art of making those rules fit into reality. They're literally two halves of the exact same equation. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought to carry forward. We've just spent all this time decoding a graphic from 1957, but honestly, the core message here is absolutely timeless. How do these exact visual metaphors of steady growth and complex puzzle solving apply to the modern agreements we see today? I mean, whether it's a massive global trade deal or an international climate summit, aren't we still just trying to balance the rigid rules of the shield with the scattered converging puzzle pieces of global integration? It's a massive puzzle, and we're definitely still trying to solve it. Thanks so much for joining today's explainer. I'll catch you on the next one.